Welcome back to this induction video. As I highlighted, my name is Shingai Chanya, and I'm taking you through the assessment process. So in the first video, what we did is we covered what assessment was and basically the content of the ICAS training program and the complexities that we meet when we are. So we are now moving on to what is known as the decision trees. So decision trees are basically an instrument that ICAS utilizes to ensure that there is consistency in the assessment process. That is, whether we use decision trees to ensure that if one is to be assessed by an individual within their organization, and if another individual then comes through and assesses them, they will reach the same conclusion. So there are basically two decision trees, that is the technical skills decision tree and the professional skills decision tree. And it is important for us to highlight the distinction between technical skills and professional skills. I think I mentioned it in the video prior to this, where we highlighted that there are 7 core subject areas within the ICAS training program, and 6 of those relate to technical skills, while one of that subject area, it relates to professional skills. So technical skills are a demonstration of competency, that is, can a task be performed at a required level, while its professional skills are a demonstration of the capability, that is, whether a task can be performed in the appropriate manner using the appropriate soft skills. So I think the key word here for professional skills is soft skills. You have to be able to do your work in a certain in a certain way. An accountant has to carry his or herself in a certain way. So that is what then what professional skills then come in to evaluate and test whether you are really competent and whether you carry yourself in terms of what a CAZ should carry themselves like, right? So as highlighted, there are 2 decision trees. One is technical and one is professional. And the use of these decision trees is mandatory for both trainees and reviewers. So as the trainee, you are required to use the decision tree in coming up with your rating. You'd see that even in your TSR, which are assessment instruments, the documents which you fill in, you'd see that there is a point, or there is a section which highlights that this is the decision tree. This is the decision tree path you took in order to say that you are a level 4 or level 3, right? And then also when the reviewer is then reviewing your performance, in order for them to reach a conclusion, they also have to follow the decision tree so that they can come up to a conclusion which is appropriate, right? So as I highlighted, TSRs and PSRs, technical skills review and professional skills reviews, require the inclusion of the decision tree path labels as justifications for ratings awarded. So let's move on to the technical skills decision tree. So you'd see that there are potentially 15 paths that can be taken in determining a certain level of competence. So in choosing a path, one must consider, firstly, to what degree does the trainee receive instruction to perform a task, right? So that is the first consideration. So you'd see that you then get the option of no or yes, right? And then the next question would then be, after the initial attempt at the task, what was the outcome? That is, to what extent is correction or resolution required? And then after we have assessed the outcome, we then assess the quality of the outcome. So we then assess how fundamental the requirements or the corrections are. And then the final leg will then ask whether, after having received an initial review and comments and guidance, is the trainee able to resolve the outstanding issues. So you'd see that, for example, let's take a certain path, or let's just follow a path and see where we end up. So as I highlighted, the first question is whether does the trainee receive direction as to what to do or how to do the task. So you'd see that if you can select either yes or no, and if you were to select yes, the next question would be, did the trainee satisfactorily complete the task assigned to them? So once you answer yes to this question, you will then get a rating level of 3. That is, you are able to do the task with minimal supervision, right? But if you then answer no, it would then raise another question. That is, how many problems, queries are there that still need to be addressed? And this is where some judgment will be required. That is, there are few or many. And if there are few, you'll then be asked whether the problems are fundamental to the completion of the task. And you can answer yes or no again. And if you answer no, you then get a rating level 3, and that would be path J. But if you answer yes to this question, it would mean that you would then be required to ask the fourth question, or the fourth consideration. And this is the question that, can the problem be resolved by the trainee first time around? That is, after receiving initial feedback. And you can then answer yes or no. If you answer no, it means that you cannot perform the task, right? You cannot perform the task, and you'll be given a rating level of 1 using path L. But if you then resolve the issues after intervention, you will then get a rating level 2. So that is how you use the technical skills decision trees. Moving on to the technical skills decision tree. So the technical, the profession. Okay, sorry. This is just basically summarizing what I have just been saying. That is the four key questions, or the 4 key considerations that we make in order to reach a certain path and a certain rating scale. Moving on to the professional skills decision tree. So you'd find that what is different from the professional skills decision tree and the technical skills decision tree is the number of questions that you'll be asked. So under the professional skills decision trees, you'd find that there are 9 potential paths. That is, they range from A to path I. And then there are 3 key factors that must be considered. That is, firstly, to what extent the trainee receives guidance. Secondly, to what extent are they able to achieve the desired outcome through utilization of the relevant professional skills. And then thirdly, after receiving any additional guidance, to what extent can the desired outcome now be achieved? So we can maybe, again, go through an example of how you then utilize the professional skills decision tree. So after having performed a certain task and you feel like you have achieved a certain level of competence in your professional skills, you then take the professional skills decision trees, and then the first question that you ask yourself, or that the reviewer then asks themselves, is that, does the trainee receive guidance or instruction or direction on how to execute the skill, right, in order to achieve the set objective? So here you can answer yes or no. Let's say you have answered yes to this question. It will then trigger another question, that is, can the trainee satisfactorily demonstrate the skill? That is, was the objective of which the skill was being utilized achieved? So here you can also answer yes or no. So once you answer yes to this, it means that you have achieved a rating level of 3 for your professional skill that you are claiming, and that would be part F. And then if you answer no to this, it would mean it would then trigger another question on how bad was it? So to what degree was the objective of the skill achieved or not achieved? So if your answer here is here, I think the answer here will require some level of judgment. So if you answer here that it was really bad, right? You would then get a rating level of 1, and that would be part I. But if you answer almost, you will then trigger another question, which then asks, was the objective subsequently achieved satisfactorily first time around by the trainee after receiving initial feedback? So in this scenario, you would then answer yes or no. And if you answer no, it means you cannot or you do not have the competencies for a certain professional skill or the professional skill that you wanted to claim, right? So that you will then get a rating level of 1. Whilst if you answer yes, you would then get a rating level of 2, and that would be through part G. So this slide basically summarizes what I've just been highlighting, the 3 key questions you need to ask yourself whilst you are going through the professional skills decision tree. So once you have determined the rating scale, or once you have determined your rating scale, you should then document your rating or the professional skills or the technical skills that you have achieved. And that is where the assessment instruments then come in. So assessment instruments are basically the actual documents used by the trainee to present evidence about their abilities to complete ICA's prescribed technical skills and demonstrate professional skills and values. So there are 3 main instruments in the ICA's assessment process. That is the technical skills review, the professional skills review, and the assessment needs analysis. So the completion of the TSR and PSR are self-evaluations by trainee, which are then reviewed and independently rated by the trainee's reviewer, right? So it is important for us to note that the completion of these documents, that is the TSR, the PSR, and the ANA, is the direct responsibility of the trainee, right? And one of the pervasive tasks or the pervasive skills or the professional skills requires that trainees demonstrate their ability to take responsibility for their own development. So this would then mean that where the trainee drives the assessment process, this can be provided as evidence of this skill, right? So one could be able to claim this skill, specifically it's PA7, it's a pervasive skill, where one is able to drive the assessment process, where the reviewer does not have to come and continuously request for a TSR from the trainee, but rather the trainee takes initiative and is the one who is leading the process, he or she is submitting their TSR for review on a timely manner. They are also submitting their ANAs, their assessment needs analysis on a timely manner. This would mean that the trainee is really taking responsibility for their own development. So before the commencement of any assignment by the trainee should request the reviewer to highlight which ICAS tasks he or she is going to be exposed to. And this may help the trainee by giving them an opportunity to prepare for this task prior to undertaking them. The trainee should also reflect on whether there are any developmental needs that were identified during the previous assessment needs analysis meeting that he or she might be able to work on in the upcoming engagement. So if there are indeed development needs that could be worked on during the upcoming assignment, the trainee should discuss this with the reviewer prior to the start of the engagement. So let's talk about the TSR, or the Technical Skills Review. So this document basically records evidence of competency in technical tasks. And we are saying that the performance is task specific, that is by job, by month, or by project. And it is generated by the trainee and reviewed by the reviewer. It is important to note that the TSR should be, the trainee should complete at least one technical skills review every 2 months. So what does this mean? It means that the ANA, or the assessment needs analysis, it should include reference to at least 3 technical skills reviews that were submitted by the trainee and reviewed by the reviewer. Moving on to professional skills review, where we say that this document records the evidence of competency in pervasive or professional skills. And this performance is also task specific, that is by job, by month, or by project. And trainees should document evidence for at least one PCC value and document evidence for and rate one other professional skills task in the PSR for every 2 months in a timely manner. Again, this document is generated by the trainee and is reviewed by the reviewer. Right, moving on to the assessment needs analysis. So the ANA, as most people want to call it, is a cumulative record of the trainees' current levels of demonstrated competencies in both their technical and professional skills. So what we are saying is that we take the technical skills review or the technical skills that were achieved by the trainee over a 6-month period, and then we condense them and we include them in this ANA. And then we also take, in this document rather, and then we also take the professional skills that were able to be achieved by a trainee over a 6-month period, and then we populate these into the ANA. So this assessment needs analysis, it's really used by the evaluator to evaluate whether the trainee's current levels of demonstrated competence in both their technical and professional skills award an overall summative assessment rating and identify potential developmental needs. So the person best qualified to be the trainee's evaluator is someone sufficiently senior to be able to determine and establish any necessary plans of action and influence the planning of assignments for the trainee arising from the evaluation. So you'd see that it is important for the evaluator to be someone who is appropriately senior and who is able to then determine the work that you will be allocated to in the next 6-month period. So you'd see that these are your managers, not your supervisors, but your managers, who are responsible for then tasking you or placing you on a specific task, right? So we are saying that the evaluator utilizes the assessment needs analysis, right, to determine whether the trainee's training program is going according to plan. And if it is not going according to plan, that it is the evaluator then who then develops an intervention processes to ensure that we then get back into or back on track. So the evaluator should have adequate knowledge of the assessment process to be able to make the judgment call as to whether the trainee is on track with their progress reports, achieving the required level of competency or capability. So the assessment needs analysis, there are 4 main considerations or activities on the part of the evaluator. So the first one is that the evaluator should consider whether a determination of the trainee's current levels of demonstrated competencies, right? And then there is also a consideration of whether this overall rating is adequate acceptable at the current stage of their training contract. Then thirdly, a consideration of whether the trainee is being provided with adequate exposure and opportunity to tasks based on the period of the trainee's training contract. And then lastly, the evaluator should consider and discuss regarding the cumulative evidence submitted to date by the trainee in support of their demonstrated professional conduct. So having then considered the considerations that we have highlighted, we then come up, or with the evaluator then comes up with the position of whether the trainee is on track or not. So where the trainee is not on track, we then develop planned interventions to ensure that we get back on track and the student is able to achieve all the competencies required within the set or within the time limits of the training contract that the student signed. So you'd see that development is only required under two circumstances. One, given a trainee's current cumulative exposure to opportunities to demonstrate competence in a task, the trainee is demonstrating a lower level of competence than what would have expected from them at this point in time. This would mean that they've fallen behind in terms of their expected progression, right? And then secondly, even though a trainee is demonstrating the expected levels of competence at a point in time, given the remaining period of their training contract and the work assignments that we expect them to still receive exposure through, a trainee is unlikely able to obtain sufficient further exposure to tasks in the remaining time to enable them to demonstrate level 4 competence, right? So here we are saying that there are really two times or two scenarios in which development is required. So one could be due to time constraints, or another could be due to the student simply not demonstrating competencies where they're expected to demonstrate competence. So development is not required simply because the trainee is not yet at level 4. So you'd see that at level 1, generally there is a perception that at level 1, you have not reached a level 4 in all your tasks. So in the first period, or in the first ANA period, you would not be expected to have reached a level 4 in, for example, accounting or auditing non-routine transactions, right? So in that case, development would not be required. However, if we then were to say, as an organization, or as this is office policy now, we expect you to be able to audit a bank reconciliation, a simple bank reconciliation in the 3rd year of your 3-year contract, and you are not able to achieve that, or you are not able to really audit a bank reconciliation satisfactorily, that would mean that some intervention would be needed so that you are able to complete your contract, your 3-year contract, having achieved all the competencies that are required, right? So this diagram just basically tries to summarize what we have been saying. And it's sort of like a decision tree, or a path, or a set of questions that the evaluator can then ask themselves in order to see whether development is required or not. Now, so the first question you would ask yourself is whether at this point in time, for this particular trainee, if they demonstrated a level of competence in this task that is in line with what you would have expected them at this point in time. So once the answer here is no, it's simple, development is required. But once the answer is yes, we then ask ourselves whether the trainee will receive sufficient exposure to this task through the normal course of events in the remaining time in their contract to enable them to demonstrate exit level requirements by the end. Once your answer is no on this in this question, then development is required. But once you answer yes, that is you expect that with the remaining time, the trainee will be exposed to these skills and will be able to achieve those skills, then development will not be required. So in developing and planning interventions, you find that there are 4 key elements in a development plan, or that should be included in a development plan. So the first one is a specific intervention where the trainee will acquire the shortfall in capabilities. And then secondly, who will be responsible for doing what to ensure that the plan is followed through? Then thirdly, when should these actions be undertaken? And then finally, the development plan should address both the shortfall in capability and then provide the training with opportunities to apply their improved knowledge. So finally, under the development plan and the planned interventions, where a trainee reaches the end of their contract term having failed to adequately demonstrate competence in all the prescribed values, skills, and tasks set out in the training program, the training regulations require that a training office either cancel or extend the training contract. And development plans are put in place to assist trainees in demonstrating required levels of competence by the end of their contract term, and trainees need to be reminded of the consequences where these plans are not successfully followed. So in summary, that is the assessment process within the ICAS training program. We've really talked about a lot. We covered what assessment is and how then an ICAS trainee assesses themselves. That is the utilization of the decision tree and the utilization of the decision trees and the other assessment instruments. So thank you very much. This is where I will stop. Thank you.